Hey, good morning, Jacques. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding. I'm talking to Garth Brooks.
Entering his second year as the LSU head football coach.
It was the only way I could get a foot in the door.
Joined by the icon, Kim Mulkey. Hey, Coach, great to see you.
Wilson Alexander is a talented young sports writer for the Baton Rouge Advocate. He's been there for 6 years now, covering the LSU football Tigers. Wilson, thanks for coming down today.
Thanks for having me, Jacques.
Good to see you.
Kind. It's very complimentary of you. I don't know if I've eard any of that.
And a great head of hair, too. Look at that, Nice cabbage
I
you
maybe
got.
have that, I guess. I don't know. If it ever falls out, yeah, it would be a devastating day. I just hope it hangs on.
I don't think I'd ever go with a toupee or a comb over. I think I just have to buzz it.
Yeah, I've always told myself that if I ever lose my hair, I'm just going to accept it. But if that actually ever happens, I hope that I can. 'Cause I don't want to be that person hanging on to wisps.
It's the old start it right here and then you're going to go to the top. So, and it's our hair's nice and dry at the moment. It has been sweaty because we've been out at LSU football practice. And we were out there today. And how about I start with this? I am just I appreciate Brian Kelly letting us watch as much practice as we do, because I got here in 2001, and really from Nick Saban to Les Miles to Ed Ogeron, oftentimes we go out there 5-10 minutes. I see a toss dive to Leonard Fournette against air. I see some guys hitting sleds, and then they throw us out, and then the guy on the street wants to know, hey, how's the team look? And I'm like, I really don't know. So at least we get to see competition. We get to see guys. We get to see 11 on 11, 7 on 7, and that really does, give you an idea of who can play and who can't.
I mean, gosh, we've seen the majority of, 3 of the first 6 practices or something like that, I think. And it does give you a good idea of what maybe the team's actually going to look like. And I'm equally as appreciative as you are of Kelly giving us that kind of access in the preseason to practice, because it's also not something that you get throughout the SEC. Georgia doesn't allow that kind of access. Alabama has started allowing access, more of it anyhow, under Kalen DeBoer than they did under Saban. But I still don't know if it's full practices like we're getting with Brian Kelly. And we get more later this week, too, to be able to watch what's going on out there. And I know we're appreciative of it, and I think the fans get something out of it, too. So I hope they are as well.
Well, Charles Hannegriff, who's been here for a very long time, does a great job. One of his favorite sayings is football coaches are more paranoid than drug dealers. And so they're so a lot of them, as what you reference, they're so afraid that something is going to get out from the practice, or somebody's going to see something, and it's going to be war secrets or whatever traded to the enemy, and that's going to make a difference in a game. I don't think that anything we've seen is going to be earth-shattering to Clemson.
No, I don't think so, because a lot of what we've also seen is They do, obviously they also cut off video after 10 to 15 minutes. So when you're actually running plays, that kind of stuff isn't getting out there. Because if we were disseminating bird's eye views of plays, then maybe that'd be bad. But we're seeing a lot of stuff that's more like, okay, the defensive line is looking good, and maybe we're concerned about the O-line, and this guy's winning this position battle, and that kind of stuff. So it's probably not really affecting Clemson's preparation necessarily, what's getting reported out of preseason camp.
Yeah, and we're not supposed to be on our cell phones either. After all these years, folks, I've just learned how to do voice to text. Can you believe that? I just started. And so I would like to be able to do voice to text, but we don't. So keep your cell phone in your pocket and just, the old-fashioned way, chicken scratch on paper. Like a scribe, like yourself, right?
It's kind of nice to be able to just put your phone away for a couple hours, though, isn't
it? You know what? Yeah, it is. There was a guy today at the gym, and we were talking about the younger generation. I forgot how he phrased it exactly, but it was so perfect. He said, this generation is just stuck in the mirror and on their camera. And so, it is good to every now and then, hey, let's put this away and try to have some social skills and try to interact without that thing.
Yeah, that's why I like playing golf, because I just put it in my bag for 4 hours and I just forget about it. It's the best feeling. And it's the same kind of thing. Yeah. It's nice to be able to unplug it.
A lot of people say that, right? There's never a bad day on the golf course, no matter how bad you play.
I don't know about that.
After you hook a few in the drink and a few in the woods, you might have to start throwing a few back to enjoy the afternoon. And it's so hot this time of year, too, to get out there and play. Yeah. But, well, let's talk about the team. So why don't we, like the other day, I said, let's start wide and let's go in. So expectations, this is year 4 for Brian Kelly. I would say that his first year was his best year. That's the year they made it to the SEC championship game, the best job he did considering what he inherited. In the next 2 years, 2023, your offense is way up here, your defense is way down here. Last year was a little more, but last year technically was his worst year of the first 3 because you lost 4 regular season games. So now he's entering year 4. I still get stopped by certain people that ask me, do you think Brian Kelly's going to be fired after this year? And, barring something unforeseen, like the biggest disaster ever, and even the biggest disaster ever, I just don't see LSU giving him $60 million to go away, and then you have to hire the next guy and then pay off all the assistants. And what a mess.
It just feels like you have to be able to take emotion out of a decision like that at this time, because it feels like it would be bad business for that very reason. The buyout is so large. If LSU were to pay it, it would be the second biggest buyout in college football history behind what A&M paid Jimbo Fisher a couple of years ago to make 75. Him go away. Yeah. And so it's just doesn't feel like it's at a point in his contract where it's financially feasible, even if LSU were to bottom out this year. I guess you never say never. People get very motivated sometimes by losing, but that would also, there's also a scenario here in which LSU has a good season. We're not talking about it anyway, But if LSU does not have the kind of year that everybody expects, I don't know that you would want to make that kind of financial decision.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that people have lives and they're working and they have a lot of other things on their mind besides LSU football. But it is interesting how many people seem to have rediscovered that he has a 10-year contract that's 100% guaranteed. Yeah. Really? It's all guaranteed? Yeah, that's been that way. It's been that way since he walked through that door, 4 years ago.
And remember this, LSU is only going to finish paying Ed Orgeron's buyout in December. They haven't yet finished paying Ed Orgeron. So if you were to only then in December finish paying Ed, only then to fire Brian Kelly and then have to take on a larger buyout, then you're just continuing to have to kind of handle that kind of expense in the midst of figuring out revenue sharing and all those sorts of things that athletic departments are dealing with this day and age. And LSU, of course, is meeting the max on the rev share, but trying to go over that through other avenues and, by setting up deals. And so, the folks over there talk a lot about how they need more money and all this, and there's financial constraints. So if you're going to then try to add a $50+ million buyout on top of that, the timing would feel strange for that reason, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, Kelly Zinn, who's moved on to Rutgers, she was sitting here not long ago, and we were talking about LSU, and I think LSU, the Advocate always does a great job of breaking down how much money they took in, how much they spent. I want to say the entire athletic department took in like $221 million, and then they spent like all but 1.7 of that or something. It's like, when I go for a jog, I'm jogging like 5-6 miles an hour. This is like getting on a treadmill and putting it like 13 miles an hour and trying to keep up, right? The numbers are so, huge.
Yeah.
it's wild.
Big money in athletics.
Yeah. In today's modern time, what you're paying the coaches, what the fans are paying to go to park, all those different things. Well, all right. So let's start with the most important position on the field too when it comes to the team. Garrett Nussmeier, we've been out there from day one. Really, he's been a guy that you say he can make all the throws. Physically, the arm, the defense can't say, well, the kid can't make this throw. We're gonna, let him have that. He's still out there. The ball comes out live. I think for the most part, when we've watched, there was one turnover a couple days ago. Harold Perkins baited him and dropped back and intercepted it. It was during 7-on-7. I looked at Nuss the second he threw it, and he did that. I didn't see him type deal. But just needs to cut down on some of the turnovers, but then also LSU needs to help him out in terms of giving him a running game, in which today we saw Caden Durham pop one for 45 yards late in practice. But outside of that, there hasn't been a whole lot of daylight for the running game. So, these things work hand in hand as they always have. Got to give the quarterback a little bit of a running game so he can excel in the passing game as well.
It's been far too inconsistent, the running game, to this point in camp, where, like you said, there's moments where Caden Durham pops something big. There was a video that LSU posted from, I think, one of the only practices that we actually weren't at last week where, long run for Caden Durham. And then today, the 45-yarder breaks a tackle from Jordan Gilbert on the sideline, takes it to the house. But between those high moments, it's not like they're breaking off 7-8 yards, getting consistent push, that kind of thing, getting up to the second level. There's a lot of tackles for loss, maybe a 3-yard gain, having to break a couple tackles to pick up 5 yards. It's not been a very encouraging start for the run game. And, Brian Kelly said that the offensive line has to be able to handle the movement better that they are implementing in there. And it's essential for LSU to be able to run the football, especially game one. I feel like you've got to be able to establish the run early in that Clemson game to have success. And so it's probably one of the biggest things to watch here throughout the rest of the preseason. Can they get the run game going?
Well, it kind of reminds me of, now that you mentioned it, it reminds me of last year's Alabama game in Tiger Stadium. LSU ran for only 104 yards in the game. But early on, Caden Durham had a 48-yarder, I think he popped, and they tackled him, and then LSU didn't score a touchdown. But one big run and a whole lot of other runs that don't do much is not what you need. And as you, I think, alluded to just now, your first game of the year, you're on the road at Clemson. You're not going to be able to hear yourself think. You've got a lot of new offensive linemen that you're trying to break in and protect your quarterback and whatnot. And so that's going to be the biggest challenge to me, obviously, on paper, right off the bat. LSU's offensive line against Clemson's D-line and linebackers. Yeah,
Peter Woods and T.J. Parker over there, and Will Helt, a transfer from Purdue. Another guy to know there on the Clemson defensive front. They're talented. They're projected first-round picks, a lot of them over there, for a reason. LSU's going to have to be able to handle that in a really tough environment, like you're saying. And with the running game, though, last year there was 107th in the country in rush yards per game. It doesn't, I don't even think, need to be top 25 necessarily, but you got to be able to be better situationally. Third and short, you need to be able to know that you can run the football and not have to just put it in Garrett Nussmeier's hands. You can't also constantly fall back into 3rd and 8. You got to be able to stay ahead of the chains. In the red zone, in the red zone, they got to be able to run the football, right? Yeah. So I feel like even if the run game isn't necessarily the run game of old at LSU, it's got to be better in those moments for LSU to have success.
Well, Caden Durham's a very talented kid. He's not the biggest. He's 5'9". They list him, 205. He's very fast. We know that. And we know that he earned Brian Kelly's respect and a lot of people's respect by playing on broken toes for a large amount of last year. Caleb Jackson is the guy that, who's 235 pounds that you'd like to line up and say, hey, get us a yard like you're talking about. That's been kind of slow to develop, keeping him on the field. He's learning football. He was a soccer player, I think, to start. And then at Liberty, he only played 2 years of high school football. He's got the physical ability, but, what can they get out of him? I think that's a big, because in his first year, in Starkville, he runs over the guy and everyone gets excited, naturally so. But last year, only 150 yards rushing, no touchdowns for Caleb Jackson last year.
It was kind of mysterious, wasn't it? Because, he had such a promising freshman year, that moment in Starkville, and then the bowl game.
Yeah.
He was really good in that bowl game, too. And then last year just didn't have – he said himself, I think we were talking to him in the spring, how he was talking about how he had gained too much weight. Maybe he was still kind of learning how to run with 235 pounds on his frame. I think for his freshman year, he was 225. And that kind of affected him and his explosiveness. And so, we haven't really seen much from him in camp. Even today, Harlan Berry was getting a lot of work with the first team behind Caden Durham because they need him to be ready to play too. You don't have a lot of depth at running back, really. You've got 4 guys there. And so Caleb Jackson's going to need to be able to contribute to both spell Caden Durham and maybe bring some of that physicality because of his size, his frame, to the run game. But he's got to be able to probably be more decisive in the run when he's making his cuts and that kind of thing, to be able to then use some of that athleticism that we know is there. We've seen it. It's just got to be consistent.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how many running backs they play because, different years, different situations. But I remember in 2023 they talked about we've got a committee, and then Logan Diggs pretty much took over. He was the bell cow for a big chunk of the year where he's getting 80-90% of the carries. So how many of these guys are they actually going to, try to work into a game?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating because Caden Durham's probably is your lead back, and he can probably handle that kind of workload as long as he stays healthy. But you just need to be able to spell him at times, not run him into the ground kind of thing. And you mentioned Logan Diggs. We're going to see him in the LSU Ole Miss game. It looks like he's going to be Ole Miss's starting running back this year after recovering from an ACL injury.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah. Well, the last time I saw Logan Diggs was at that bowl game at the end of 2023. 3, right? When
Yeah.
Garrett Nussmeier got his first start against Wisconsin in Tampa. That's where we were?
Yes, good recall.
And, yeah, he had that rough injury. I just remember him just dragging that leg into the tunnel and went to Ole Miss. And I didn't hear a whole lot from him last year. I don't know.
Yeah, he was out for the year with that injury.
Yeah, that was a rough injury. Obviously, that was January. That was New Year's Day. So, all right, well, that'll be an interesting storyline to see him back in action. And this offense, the talented players you have, as Coach Kelly said, you've got 8 wide receivers that they feel like are all SEC caliber or high-impact players. But you build your team from the inside out, not the outside in. I mean, I remember, this is kind of a silly reference, but I remember when both Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry signed with the Cleveland Browns, and there were some people around here like, oh, give the Cleveland Browns a Super Bowl. It's over. It's like you don't win championships with wide receivers.
It's still the Cleveland Browns.
It's still the Cleveland Browns. That's right. But let's talk about these wide receivers, because it appears like you talk about the veterans and Chris Hilton Jr., who has not played a ton, but when he's played, he's been a problem for defenses. Nick Anderson, he looks like he's healthy and ready, the Oklahoma transfer. We can talk about him for a second. They've used him across the middle, on the sideline, everywhere.
I've been impressed with him over the past week. Now that he is, as you said, healthy, because he was limited in the spring by the hamstring, and then first day of camp coming out of concussion protocol following that car accident. And, you're not quite still just not at that point, not quite sure what you're going to see. But within a matter of days, he's been pretty impressive. Still not, I guess, getting a ton of first team reps. It's not like he's established himself as a clear starter kind of thing, but because they have so many, it might not matter as long as you're just sort of in that rotation.
Yeah.
And he seems to catch everything thrown his way. I can't really remember him just dropping something that hits him in the hands. He's a different body out there than the rest of LSU's receivers at 6'4". LSU's going to play him to the boundary. Probably want to be one of the first guys they look to if you're in 3rd and 8 kind of thing. But the other thing that I was told that's impressive about him is that he's able to maintain his speed through his breaks on his routes. When he's cuts, he's not decelerating. He's not having to make a bunch of choppy steps into a cut to keep going upfield. I think there's a reason why he caught 10 touchdowns as a freshman at Oklahoma. And if he's able to stay healthy, then he wasn't able to last year, then I think he can really make a difference for this team.
Yeah, he's their biggest guy. All the other guys are about the same height, but he stands out. He's 6'4".
Yeah, everybody else is shorter and really fast.
Today they were lined up, Wilson, and I think Nick Anderson was standing next to Trey'Dez Green. And I'm looking at these two guys. I'm like, wow, this is a pair of physical freaks right here. Trey'Dez is 6'7", I think.
Right.
And this guy's 6'4", both, freak shows.
Can we just get DJ Pickett in that too, and just sort of see how everybody compares? And I would love to see at one point in camp DJ Pickett and Trey'Dez Green in a one-on-one. I don't know that we'll see it because you don't really match up corners with the tight ends like that. But I would just love to see 6'5" and 6'7" and whatever happens.
Yeah, that would be a heck of a matchup. And I'm not breaking any news today, but I'm looking at LSU's offensive line, even though they need to improve and everything. And I'm looking at Brad Davis, their positions coach. And he played at Oklahoma and was on a national championship team. I guess it's already been 25 years ago, 2000. That was Stoops' first year at Oklahoma. And he is tiny compared. These guys are trees, in the current. I mean, Tyree Adams, he's 6'7", 310. DJ Chester, 6'6", 315. Josh Thompson, 6'5". Weston Davis, 6'7". I mean, it's just like the modern day athlete is, like I said, that football players are big, but when you're out there and you see it in person, it does kind of strike you over the head a bit.
Ori Williams too. I don't even know what his measurables are. Maybe it's there.
He's
77. I was watching him today and just
6'8". Good call, Wilson. Yeah. Sorry.
I just saw him today and noticed the same thing. I was like, my God, he is huge. and he's probably not going to be a starter this year or anything, but maybe down the road. Yeah, LSU's got a lot of size up front, and we'll see if they can, that can translate into, pushing guys off the ball.
More wide receivers. Barrion Brown from Kentucky. I think it was yesterday. It was just a Nussmeier turn, throw it to the side, and Brown catches it, and there's all this congestion around him, and he just kind of separates. I think he's going to be really exciting to watch. And we interviewed him back in the spring, and it seemed like a real good kid too.
He's just so fast, and for that very reason, he can separate in a way downfield that is hard to find. And he's not even maybe the fastest guy on the team. Chris Hilton at running 23.7 miles per hour is, I think, the fastest that they've had. And but Berrien's right up there too. And talking to some of his former teammates at Kentucky last year when we were at media days, just what is this guy like? What is there about him? They just all brought up the same word: speed. They just kept saying speed. And if LSU can finally kind of pairing him with a quarterback like Nussmeier, maybe he can have a really true breakout season, because he's played a lot at Kentucky, but he's played with quarterbacks who aren't on the same level as Garrett Nussmeier for the most part, other than his freshman year with Will Levis. And so it hasn't really translated. And if he's if playing with a high level quarterback can unlock something for him, then maybe he can be in tune for a good year, because that speed is impressive when he starts getting in the open field.
Yeah, I think Matt Moscona said it was a coaching malpractice by Stoops over Kentucky, that they couldn't get more out of this guy, as talented as he is. And just some other guys to mention. Last year it was a UCLA game. Kyle Parker got deep. Nussmeier hit him for a bomb, and then he got hurt. But he was just to bring him up. He's a guy I'm watching today, catching passes, seems to catch the ball, get upfield. He's another guy that maybe he's not the first five, in the top 5 or 6 that we mentioned, but in the 1990s he might have made All SEC for Curly Hallman, or he's got that kind of talent.
You don't forget about this guy, because he's actually really been the main beneficiary of Aaron Anderson missing time here at the start of camp. Kyle Parker's been running with the ones a bunch in the slot. And yeah, he's not one of those first names you mentioned, because he hasn't done a whole lot at LSU, and he's not one of these big profile transfers that they brought in, but he's making plays out there. And he had that catch over the middle today right before Caden Durham's touchdown run. Brian Kelly has been really impressed with him. He was talking about Kyle at the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank the other day, because of Aaron's injury, how impressed he's been with Kyle Parker, just saying he's consistent, really, really consistent. That's a guy that the coaches trust, and that goes a long way.
And Destin Hill, I don't know if he's been a surprise or not, but and this guy is cut up too. I mean, the muscles just pop on this guy as a wide receiver. And the first day or two we were there, he made like an out route, and he went up and he snagged it like that and brought it down. It was like, holy cow, he was putting on a show out there. And so he's a newcomer, obviously, that LSU fans may fall in love with quickly.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much of a role he has on this team with everybody else out there, because I haven't seen him really doing a ton with the first team just yet.
Yeah.
But to your point, he has made some plays, and he's got such an interesting career where it took him a while to actually get to Florida State, and then last year he was hurt most of the time, and so it's going to be interesting to see what he can turn into. As I understand it, Florida State kind of played him to the field. LSU thinks he's more of a boundary receiver, kind of like Nick Anderson, and so maybe that can unlock him in some kind of way this year, or even just moving forward, because I don't think this is his last year of eligibility. So. And
Aaron Anderson was LSU's leading receiver last year in terms of catches and yardage, and Kyron Lacey, rest in peace, made the big catch against Ole Miss to win the game. But if I go through our highlights last year of almost every big passing play, I feel like number one was on the other end of that, and quite a comeback story from going to Alabama, that not working out. His first year at LSU, he didn't do much, right? And then last year, he really showed his talent, and hopefully this injury, Brian Kelly's saying it's not a big deal. It's just some inflammation from an injury, from a surgery, and then he'll be back.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation, we're recording this on Tuesday, and Brian Kelly was saying that he should be back out there tomorrow. We won't know. We're not out there tomorrow, but let's see on Friday, because, this is a guy who should be a starter, and he went for over 800 yards last year, ended up as LSU's leading receiver. He's the guy you want there in the slot for sure. He's got a good connection with Nussmeier, and it'll be good to see him get back on the field here soon, most likely.
And Bauer Sharp, so he started his career at Southeastern, I believe.
As a quarterback for 3 years, I think so. Yeah.
Then he goes to Oklahoma. He's from Alabama, right? I think he grew up. Did he grow up close to Tuscaloosa? Or I think his family is all Alabama people or something like that. So now he's playing for LSU. But he just looks great. I mean, I don't know how many passes he's going to catch, but he is definitely going to bring some physicality to anybody who's going to try to tackle him and what they can do with him in this offense.
he needs to probably be a little bit more consistent in his blocking, but when he does get his hands on somebody, I mean, he's pretty powerful with it and does a good job. And he's been reliable catching the football. And, we already know how much Garrett Nussmeier likes his tight end because we saw it last year with him and Mason Taylor. Had a great connection. And if Bauer Sharp can kind of fill into that role along with Trey'Dez Green, then LSU's going to have a good combo there at tight end. We've seen them, trying stuff with 12 personnel, trying to get them both on the field at times. And then today, I mean, Bauer catches that, pass down the sideline on the wheel route from Garrett to a really nice play in 7-on-7. So he's done nothing but impress since he got here. And I think it's been interesting that he's been able to come in and right away sort of establish himself as in that leadership role. Accountability is something that comes up a lot when you ask people about him, that he's accountable, and he's come right into being one of those team leaders.
Awesome. See, this is why this guy's here. See all these great answers? Aren't you glad you watched? I mentioned the offensive line. I guess we can just run through it real quick. So Tyree Adams, he's left tackle. So, arguably, I mean, if quarterback's your most important position, oftentimes the left tackle is number 2 because he protects his blind side and all that. Now, they got him 61 snaps in the Texas Bowl last year, and he also played 26 snaps at Florida, which is good. So at least he's been in an SEC venue and, seen how loud it is to be out there and playing. Chester, they've moved him to left guard from center, it appears. Braylon Moore, they get this guy from Virginia Tech. He was a 2-year starter there. He's played 1,400 snaps. He'll snap the ball, it appears. Josh Thompson is at right guard. There's been some mixed reviews on him so far. 5th-year senior, he comes here from Northwestern after 3 years of starting. He's got 1,400 snaps. Then you got Weston Davis, big 75 at right tackle. And we got Paul Mabinga, Cohen, Eccles, others trying to work into that rotation.
That seems to be the group, though, that you mentioned. Like, it's going to be somewhere from those 5 will be the starting 5. And it really does feel like Tyree Adams has kind of solidified himself at left tackle because right behind him is freshman Carius Kern. Hard to see Kern, even though Tyree Adams called him, I think, the strongest freshman he's ever seen. Hard to see him overtaking him this year, or at least right off the bat this year. And then center Braylon Moore, we already know, has solidified himself there. Weston Davis seems pretty entrenched at right tackle. I think the two most interesting thing is just their guard. We haven't seen anybody else outside of Josh Thompson get starting reps at right guard, so it seems like he's probably going to play there. But left guard has been Chester, Mabinga, even Cohen Eccles. I've seen at left guard some. So I feel like that's probably the spot to monitor over the next few weeks. Who ends up winning that left guard spot, and do they also feel like Josh Thompson is truly the answer there at right guard?
Brian Kelly, when he first got here, he said our guys didn't even know how to practice. They were throwing helmets and whatnot. Now today at practice, I'm not going to say who, but there was an offensive lineman after I think Nussmeier got sacked. He got hit. He went down. And there was one of the LSU offensive linemen who was not happy about that. Took the helmet off, 2 hands to the ground, threw it. And then there's Jack Marucci. He's almost trying to resuscitate the helmet. He's working on the helmet. And then Kelly comes over and talks to the offensive lineman who threw his helmet today. So there was, this guy in particular, he was being coached a lot today. And when it's
I
not
missed
even
this interaction.
Oh, you missed it. Okay.
I didn't catch that part. No.
Yeah. It was kind of far away. It was towards the end of practice, and there was a sack given up, a helmet thrown down. It's funny. Marucci, tries it, and he's working on the helmet, trying to fix it. I don't know if something broke in there or what, but and then Coach Kelly having a discussion with the young man. I'm sure saying we don't throw our helmets at practice.
Yeah.
Easy for me to say up here when it's 90 whatever degrees and you're in full pads and you got guys yelling at you all day to be better. I guess, sometimes you might snap.
It was almost a camp fight today. There was some hands starting to get thrown, things getting a little chippy, and then they pulled it back, though. They used that emotional control that Kelly always talks about. Reined it in, focused back in. They didn't let it get too high, too low or anything. But they've been out there for, most of the past week, and it's hot. You're in full pads. It starts to get chippy out there.
Yeah, you start to hear about when is the point where the proverbial we hit the wall, right? Where, I guess the first day there's excitement. Oh, here we go. that type of thing. Same applies to the media too. It's like after 2 weeks or so, you feel like maybe you've done every feature you can or whatnot. You're like, okay, we need to start keeping score and fill up a stadium and do something.
Yeah, exactly. Let's play football. Come on,
let's get on the field.
But I guess we're still probably like a week and a half away from that at least.
Yeah. We're not there yet. There yet. It's all still pretty fresh and fun. It's always fun. It's sports, right?
That's right.
Greatest job in the world. All right, let's go to defense. So Harold Perkins. So interesting topic. I mean, sometimes I get exhausted with the Harold Perkins talk, and he's the greatest in the country and this and that. Really? But then other times we go to practice, and like this week, I think last week I said something. I was like, maybe getting a little exhausted with the Harold Perkins talk because he played in 4 games last year.
Yep.
0 quarterback sacks. It's like, how good is this guy? We go to practice. I mentioned the interception he made against Nussmeier. He's everywhere. I mean, they're throwing these quick passes at the line of scrimmage. He's coming up, making tackles. He's disruptive. He's been a conversational piece for 3 years. Are they playing him in the right spot and the wrong spot? He comes on like a house of fire his freshman year. Then teams start game planning for him a little bit. He's not that big, so they're kind of getting some big guys to take him out of the plays. And so that's a lot of talking about Harold Perkins. I'm not sure where I'm landing this, but what do you think about Harold Perkins?
I find myself starting to drink the Kool-Aid, and I'm worried that it's too soon because he's had a really good first week. And even when the pass came on, like the other thing that's impressive about it is there seems to be no restrictions on him whatsoever less than a year from the ACL injury.
Yeah.
We're like really closer to 10 months than 11 months removed from that injury. And he seems to just have been full go from the start. We've even seen Whit Weeks, held back a little bit here and there. He seemed full go in the middle of everything today, but like a couple of days ago, he wasn't doing some of the contact stuff. And then Harold's been out there doing everything, and they've had him at star. They've had him on the edge. They've been doing so much, as you said, with him. And it's like, man, have they finally figured out how to use this guy and to sort of unlock the talent that we know is in there? Because as you said, I mean, like I think it was yesterday, he comes from his spot at the star position and rips through a Trades Green block to get Bauer Sharp after a short completion, and he's pressuring Nussmeier, he's baiting him into the interception. Like it's starting to feel like maybe this is the year. Who knows? We've been saying that, but like maybe this is actually the year. It's one of those things where I still want to see it to believe it, but it's been encouraging.
Yeah. We were talking about it in the last Shock Talk. I remember, so Michael Clayton, wide receiver at LSU, national champion 2003. He goes to the NFL first year with Tampa. He catches over 80 passes, 1,200 yards, something. And then he never quite had that same season. And he wrote a book, I think it was called Chasing My Rookie Year. And I feel like Harold Perkins has been chasing his freshman year in terms of the way he impacted that Ole Miss game, the Alabama game, the Arkansas game the week after the Alabama game when, everyone's on cloud 9 after the 2-point conversion to beat Alabama. You go up there to play Arkansas in the cold, and you really do nothing offensively all day. He had 4 sacks, and they took 1 away. Then he had 3.
Yeah. I can't remember even why they took it away, but I was like, oh, come on. I remember seeing that like there was a statistical change like retroactively a day later or something. I'm like, why? Why did you do that?
Exactly. I mean, they make mistakes sometimes. Just leave it in, I mean, if it's – I don't know who went back and looked at that, and did somebody else get a sack instead? Did the quarterback?
Oh man, now I can't remember.
Quarterback just got a tackle for a loss. He fell down on his own. Whatever the case may be, but certainly, it's always been okay. Is he too small? He can't take on the blocks, or can he? So we'll see. This is his last go around. He's not coming. I mean, he's a junior, but I can't imagine him coming back for another year. I think this is launched to the NFL season.
This is that. This is that what's it called, contract year kind of thing, the year you're trying to get paid sort of deal. Like you said, I mean, he technically could even like redshirt or something and come back, but this is it. I mean, this is supposed to be it. This is a guy who, when he first burst onto the scene as a freshman, when he signed as a 5-star recruit, it's like he's probably going to be here for 3 years. They're getting another year out of him because that injury and if he can finally put it all together, then he can make himself maybe a first-round pick, probably a top 50 pick at least if he has a good year. I think at the next level, there's still some questions about where exactly do you play this guy, but if LSU shows you the blueprint this year and he has a great season, then that would help a lot too. And so actually got to see him briefly over the summer for something, and he was in really good spirits kind of coming into this year. And we haven't gotten the chance to talk to him, yet this preseason, but it feels like he's put in a lot of work since that ACL injury happened. And, so I hope it works out for him this year. I hope he finally has the season that everybody's been waiting for his sake, because there has been so much talk, and rightfully so, over the past few years about why can we not see what we saw as a freshman.
Yeah, great points. And out there with him at linebacker, we see the Weeks brothers, West and Witt. Your down lineman, Dominic McKinley, who is only a sophomore, he's been getting a lot of reps. And I don't know if it's a surprise or not, but I don't know how many people were talking about this Bernard Gooden, who was at Wake Forest 1 year. He's at South Florida 2 years. He has been extremely disruptive, it appears, number 88.
It seems like every single day he makes a play, doesn't he? Tackle for loss, like at least one a practice. And today he had 2. And so we keep talking about him, and it's rightfully so, because he keeps making plays. And he's got a really quick get-off, high motor. He's not a big guy. He's 6'1", 268, I think LSU has him listed at.
That's right, yep.
So defensive tackle, you're thinking, that's not really the size you want. But I remember Jacoby and Guillory talking about how his motor just never stops running. You think he's tired, and he's not. He just keeps going. And so he's someone who you don't really want getting double-teamed. He doesn't have the size to deal with that. But LSU can certainly use him if he's as disruptive during the season as he has been so far in camp.
And you mentioned Jacoby and Guillory. He's certainly somebody you're rooting for, right? He's been there a long time. He finally was kind of a captain, so to speak, or somebody you're looking for to lead the team a year ago. Injury against Nichols, rough injury, Achilles. But it's good to see he's out there, he's playing, and it looks like he's ready to go. You like to see him have a nice year.
Yeah, he said that he had a son last year, his first son. And he said that he and his son started walking at the same time because Jacoby had to basically relearn all that coming off the Achilles. And, yeah, it's been good to see. He's in good spirits. It looked like last year might finally be like that productive season for him, and obviously gets cut short. So if he can have a good year, then maybe be able to end his LSU career on a high note, then that'd be a good thing too.
Secondary, Ashton Stamps, just like that, is a junior. He's been on one corner, and Monsieur Delane, who they got from Virginia Tech, he's been on the other. Do I have that right? That's kind of been the corners. They've been playing some other guys.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot, all off season about 5-star DJ Pickett, Florida transfer Jakeem Jackson, and Ashton Stamps is not going away. He has certainly put himself right in the mix to still be a starter. A guy who I think is easily forgotten that he actually played more snaps on the team last year than anybody. He had over 700, and he's played a lot of football. He wasn't always great last year, but he's been having a pretty good camp, and he still seems to be in the mix there, or maybe even in the lead for one of those corner spots.
And at safety, I think fans have been frustrated by some of the stuff they've seen back there in the past. Not the greatest football decisions at times. I mean, they call it safety for a reason, right? You're the last line of defense, They get by me, it's over, right? So, I asked Coach Kelly about it today. So they get Tamarcus Cooley. He comes here from NC State. And then A.J. Halsey, that's how we pronounce that. He's from Houston, right?
Yep.
And so those two are veteran guys who can play that, and there'll be others back there as well. But I think you start with those two guys in the safety position. You
would think so. I mean, LSU, brings these guys in through the transfer portal. They have some experience. Halsey has played a lot of football. And Cooley, he was a nickel at NC State. Now LSU's asking him to play more deep safety, but that seems to be a transition they think he can handle. And, it's not all that different, really, but it is somewhat different. And so you would think it's those two, but, Jordan Gilbert's back as well. Deshaun Spears, can he make a jump as a second-year player? Javian Toviano's still around too. We've just been seeing so much rotation. It's hard to kind of get a firm read on who is really going to be a starter against Clemson, because these guys are just going in and out constantly. And just when you think maybe one guy is kind of maybe emerged, then he comes off the field and the next guy goes in. They've been mixing it up so much back there that it's hard to know for sure, but I kind of have the similar read on you as you do. I think that I would be betting that it was those two if I were to be a betting man, which I'm not. But, yeah. There you go. Good stuff. And just rounding this out with a few other things, Damian Ramos, veteran kicker, he's back for your field goals. And
Burrell is still kicking off. Who's punting? The Chadwick guy?
Grant Chadwick, Middle Tennessee State transfer. Yes.
Okay, all right. So the punter from the portal, and then they've got different guys that have been back there as punt returners, and Xavier Thomas, and Aaron Anderson's the guy that brought back the kickoff for the touchdown 100 yards against Oklahoma. So,
and then Barian Brown is actually has the SEC record for most touchdowns returned on kickoff in a career with 5 already. So they've got it's 2 years ago. It's like they can't catch it. Please just don't drop it. And now it's like, actually, now that you got some weapons that you can maybe do some things with. It's going to be interesting. LSU brings in kind of a new special teams mind with Amon Anad as an analyst. And, if he can bring off some returns, maybe they can actually make special teams a weapon this year.
Yeah, it is a tough gig. Punt returner, I go to those Saints games, and like when they were playing to go to the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship game, and they kick the thing so high up there. I mean, it's in the lights, and away fair catch. And if I fumble this ball, I'm fumbling away our chance at the Super Bowl. I mean, it's a high pressure situation. It can be, but still, fans were like, we have all these athletes. We're LSU. Why are we fair catching every punt? Can't we get somebody to do both, right? Can we do the 2-step? Can we catch and run?
It made me laugh every time that the crowd would cheer on a fair catch by Clayton when he became just their fair catch specialist, and everyone's like, "Yay!" Laughed every time.
Sarcastic cheer can be great. I remember one of the first times Danny Etling got into a game. It was against Jacksonville State. And all he did was throw a little check down, and the place just roared because the previous QBs just wouldn't do that. They wouldn't take the check down. It was always forcing it to some other spot. So, but Bronx cheer, right? What do we call that? Here's one storyline, not to get out of order, but Wilson, I've been hearing a lot of these people, I've been seeing a lot of these posts that just say Garrett Nussmeier's got to run a lot more. And I just don't feel that way. I did not walk away from last year saying the reason LSU didn't accomplish their goals was because Garrett Nussmeier didn't run. Now, okay, yes, if a defense never respects you because your quarterback never keeps himself, yes, you need to do some of that. But you've been watching the backup quarterbacks, right? And I'm not here to slam anybody. They're talented kids. They will be talented, but I'm not seeing a lot of completions from the backup QBs. Have you?
They need to continue to develop. Let's put it that way, I suppose. Yeah, a lot of inconsistency from those two, Hurley and Van Buren. So, yeah, I think to your point, Nussmeier needs to stay healthy.
Yeah.
I asked him this Garrett at one point this summer in an interview, and I was like, what do you think for you is realistic running the football? He's not going to be a 1,000-yard rusher. Like, what is it for you? And what I think it is and his kind of response was, it's situationally being able to know, like, if the pocket's breaking down, I don't have anything open, don't force the pass and maybe throw a pick like we probably saw against A&M. In particular, I think that A&M game was when, he talked about this a little bit at media days, there was moments in that game when he should have just kept the ball himself, pick up a few yards, don't lose, the play, don't lose the game, just keep yourself moving in front of the chains. And we saw an example of it today where really quickly he noticed that there was nothing open downfield and he picked up 5 yards. If he can just do that a few times, then I think that's all he needs to be as a runner. Because, he's not going to be Jaden Daniels or anything like that. But if he can just use it when the moment calls for it, then he could put LSU in some better positions. And maybe cut down on his interceptions and as a result.
Yeah, and to your point, I think Brian Kelly at his first press conference, I think he said his worst play needs to be 0. There was I think it was the band The Fix had a song called Saved by Zero. So saved by 0 in terms of don't do what you did, like you said, at Texas A&M, where they're in control of that game in the third quarter. It looked like they're about to be 7-1 overall, and he rolls out and he makes a decision to throw it back. They pick it off, and the game turned, and the whole season turned on that play. Not to say that one play, he's going to make mistakes. It's a tough position to play, but that kind of started off that 3-game losing streak last year that sent the thing off track. So any other storylines really about this team to talk about before we wrap it up here? First game at Clemson. I know some fans, Wilson, I joked, sometimes people always want the other thing. Like they say, change it and do this, and then you change it. And I want it this way, I want it black. It's white. Okay, I want it white. It's black, So like in the PMAC, I used to hear, put the students behind the goal like they do at Duke, So they did that. Like, I don't like the students there. Put them back, So for a while, this Clemson game was scheduled 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so they did the neutral site game a lot. And I agree with the opinion that I went to LSU football games in the 80s and 90s. I saw LSU play Miami, Florida State, Ohio State, those kind of teams in Tiger Stadium. Now those games had become these neutral site things, which some people are okay with, other people don't like them. They don't like as nice as the stadium is in Vegas. I want to be on a college campus and this. So to get a Clemson to come to your stadium, Wilson, as you know, you have to go to their stadium. So this was set up 8 years ago. But now it's like, why are we playing this game? It's too hard of a game to start the year when we haven't won a season opener since 2019. But us talking about it won't change it. They're going to go there August 30th and play. But just your thoughts on the game, the situation.
Yeah, there was nobody. I think everybody didn't quite see. Everybody, I'm stumbling over my words here. All of a sudden saw it coming. When it has gotten closer. But to your point, it was scheduled 8 years ago. You're not going to probably change that. You can, I guess, you can get out of the contracts, but you're not going to do that. And so they've got this game. You just got to go and win it at a certain point. You got to, they've been in this scheduling strategy now for a while, scheduling these big marquee opponents week one. They seem to keep catching the best versions of some of these teams, like Florida State 2 years ago and maybe Clemson this year. And then again, you just got to be the best version of yourself. I think, mind if in the future LSU tried to schedule a softer week one opponent and then maybe week 2 or week 4 or 3 or whatever, maybe you schedule that big non-conference game to give yourself maybe a little bit more of a warm-up. But I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. They've got Clemson obviously this year and next year. Then SMU at some point by the end of the decade is going to be the season opener.
It's like 28 and 29 or something. We did that story a while back.
Yeah.
I can't quite remember. But
So it's like they've got these games coming up. They haven't changed that philosophy yet, and so they just got to, if they're going to keep doing it, then at some point just go win the football game.
Yeah,
break your streak. Just win the game if you're going to keep doing it.
Well, I don't know if it quite compares, but when Nick Saban got here, LSU fans we all had a phobia of the 2:30 CBS game for home games. We can't win a big game in the daytime, in Tiger Stadium. We've got to be at night, and Saban was like, so what? We're just, this is our attitude. CBS picks the top game in the country. We did. We don't have it anymore. Every week. And so it's a compliment. We're being picked as the top game. And finally, 2003, when Georgia came here. How old were you in 2003, Wilson?
I was 7.
You were 7. 07, and we watched them fall. Yeah, so you were very young. I don't think on that day you were probably not watching CBS when LSU played Georgia.
I have no memory of that game.
And you're from Georgia.
Yeah.
You went to school there.
That's right. Okay. But I didn't watch – my first recollections of college football are actually starting like 2004. So I don't remember the 2003 game. No.
Okay, 1 year later we just mentioned – well, Georgia paid him back heavy that in 2004 LSU went to Athens and got smashed. I think it was like 45-13 or something. David Green?
Yes, I had a David Green jersey when I was in 3rd grade. That was like I remember like him and David Pollock, and that was sort of my first football memories. But I don't remember the LSU game that year either.
Well, in 2004, it's like one of those games where no matter how hard you prepare or whatever, sometimes everything goes right for the other team and everything goes wrong for you. And I think Green was just throwing these fades all day and out jumping Corey Webster and those guys touchdowns. I think he threw 5 touchdowns in the game or something. Anyway, and then LSU had a guy caught a kickoff and kneeled at the 1. He lost where he was at, and that just summed up the day. We just kneeled at our own
disaster
1 yard line. But circle back to my rambling. LSU beat Georgia in the daytime in 2003. So maybe LSU can, just go win the season opener. Because if they do clear this hurdle, you would hope, kind of like a gymnast, I'm doing a very difficult routine here. Score me properly, I'm taking on an unnecessary risk playing this game. We're not playing, Alaska State the first game here. So if we win this thing, when as Matt Moscona would call them, the snobs in suburban Dallas meet to decide who gets in the playoff and who doesn't, put us in if we're 10-2 or whatever.
It would be a springboard through the rest of the year. It takes some pressure off of having to, not run the table, but maybe only suffer one SEC loss. You give yourself so much room for error, because if you were to lose this game and 2 weeks later you play Florida at home.
Yeah.
Lagway beat them last year. If Florida would win that game, and all of a sudden LSU sitting at 1-2, like, oh boy, it's September. You got 2 losses against a tough schedule. That's not good. But if you can start with this Clemson game with a win, you might have one of the best wins in college football all year. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head some of the other marquee non-conference games, but to go on the road in week 1, if you were to win that game, you probably have one of the best wins of the season, and you set yourself up for a playoff run right away.
Yeah. Well, the coaches poll came out, and we know that the preseason polls don't mean a whole lot, but they do generate interest and excitement and whatnot. And Florida's 17. I mean, they've gone from Billy Napier's on the hot seat, we're going to can him, to now being a top 20 team after, beating LSU late last year, beating Ole Miss, winning their bowl game, going on a win streak. South Carolina's 13 too. They're pretty highly ranked. They come here. That's going to be a tricky game, but this does kind of remind me of 2018. Were you on the beat then?
Not yet.
Not yet. 2018, that was Ed Orgeron coming off his first year as head coach. There was kind of some grumbling. There's always grumblings, but there was some So the first game of the year, they're playing Miami and Arlington. Miami's top 10, and then they played Southeastern at home, and then they had Auburn on the road, who was top 10 also. And it was like, wow, they could go 1-2. Well, they won all 3. And if it wouldn't have been for the A&M game, in which many LSU fans felt the ref screwed them that night, I don't know if that's true or not, but that seems to be the popular consensus. They would have been a 10-2 team, and in this day and age, made a playoff. So if they can win those first 3, they're set up pretty good.
They'll be the hottest team in the country if they win those first 3. They would be set up great. They've got a tough schedule. To your point, South Carolina's ranked. Texas A&M is going to be ranked starting the season probably. Oklahoma could be a good team. It's hard to tell with that new quarterback, new offensive system. Alabama's Alabama, and we'll see what they are. And
on the road at Alabama,
they got a lot of tough quarterbacks that they got to deal with this season, and some good teams too. And it's hard to know in the transfer portal era like this, like who's good, who's not going into the year, because so many teams aren't bringing back a ton. But they're going to be right in the middle of all that, and they got as good a chance, I think, as anybody to make a college football playoff run. That should be the expectations for this team. Is you should make the college football playoff. That should be the thing I think that they're aiming for, and then we'll see where things go from there. That's kind of coming to the year. I don't know that they will. I don't know to predict that they will, but I think that's the reasonable expectation for this team, is to be in contention for a spot in the college football playoff in late November.
All right. Well, back to gymnastics. You stuck the landing. We're going to end it on that right there. A perfect 10 for Wilson Alexander today.
One time, I tried to jump on a balance beam one time and almost broke my back. So I don't think it's the sport for me.
Yeah, I always talk to him, man, that beam is 4 inches wide. Can you imagine? You jumping up in the air, you flipping, you can't see where your feet are going. They're amazing, those gymnasts.
They are.
We look forward to football season. Thanks for coming down, Wilson.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
Where can they find your stuff?
TheAdvocate.com, NOLA.com. You can also find our podcasts over LSU Tigers on NOLA on YouTube. We're trying to do a lot over there. So anywhere that you would try to find the Advocate stuff.
All right.
There's still a paper too. You can pick up the newspaper.
It's at my doorstep every morning when I wake up. So absolutely, I like the physical, drink a cup of coffee like an old man, and read the paper. So
nothing wrong with that.
I'm glad it's still out there. Wilson Alexander, I'm Jacques Doucet. Thanks for stopping by Jacques Talk. We'll see you later on.